Imagine trusting the two people closest to you, only to find out they've been stabbing you in the back together. You have no idea how I got my revenge, but I promise, you're about to. You won't believe what I did to them. It was the 4th of July. Sun blazing, grills sizzling, smoke and spices swirling in the air. Jenna, my wife, was hovering over the picnic table arranging her signature potato salad. My mom always said Jenna could serve that stuff at the White House and no one would question it. My younger brother, Chris, manned the barbecue with his usual charm, flipping burgers and tossing out jokes like a one-man comedy show. Friends, neighbors, extended family, everyone was there. The picture of suburban bliss. I stood with a drink in my hand, smiling, but there was a small, quiet unease inside me. A flicker. A whisper in the back of my mind that I couldn't shake. Jenna and I had been married 6 years. Smart, grounded, naturally beautiful. We met at a charity fundraiser. She was volunteering. I was there because my buddy bailed and stuck me with the tickets. She said I listened more than I talked. I liked that she didn't play games. For years, we were solid. Chris was my wild card brother. 3 years younger. Reckless, sharp, magnetic. He was the kind of guy who showed up to Thanksgiving with a black eye and a grin, telling a story that made our parents groan and the cousins cheer. But I loved him. We'd been through everything together: school fights, busted cars, even a startup that flopped spectacularly. So when Jenna and Chris got close, I thought it was great. I even felt lucky. Wife and brother getting along. That's a win, right? But then, that moment, we were all out back. Someone made a joke about family secrets. Jenna, a few drinks in, leaned just a little too close to Chris and said, "Well, some secrets are more fun when they stay in the family, right?" People laughed, including me. But the way they looked at each other, something changed. It wasn't just a smile. It was a moment that lasted 1 second too long. The flicker of something else. That was the first crack. Chris left early, saying he had a morning meeting. I didn't question it. But something didn't add up. He hadn't had a steady job in 6 months. And Jenna? She just kept scrubbing dishes in the kitchen, humming some tune like nothing happened. So I asked her, what was that joke about? She waved me off. "You're being weird." It was nothing. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I wasn't. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing more. Jenna's phone was suddenly glued to her hand. She smiled at messages and flipped the screen whenever I walked into the room. Girls' nights became a regular thing. Chris didn't show up as often, but somehow still knew way too much about our lives. Things I hadn't told anyone. One night, Jenna left her phone on the couch while she showered. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But then it buzzed. One message. No name. Just a heart emoji and the words, "Can't stop thinking about you. Can we talk?" Then a second buzz. Same number. I didn't recognize it. But I knew. I knew it was Chris. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Not yet. Because you don't go into battle blind. You plan. You watch. You wait. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it educates you. If you're smart, you don't just survive it. You weaponize it. And trust me, I did. But this was just the start. The first sign that the people I loved most weren't who I thought they were. And what I would uncover next, that would tear my world apart. But theirs? I'd burn it down to the foundation. The morning after the barbecue, Jenna acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, hummed as she folded laundry, even joked about how sunburned Chris must have gotten at the grill. I nodded along, but inside, I was running a silent reel of everything I saw, the glance, the message, the number. That unsaved number haunted me. I knew it was Chris. I just knew. He'd done this before, not with Jenna, but he'd gotten involved with other people's wives. Always swore it was just bad luck, or that they made the first move. But now it wasn't some stranger's marriage he was gambling with, it was mine. Still, I needed more than a gut feeling. More than a hunch and a message from an unsaved number. Jenna was clever. Chris was reckless, but not stupid. If they were hiding something, I couldn't afford to blow it by confronting them too soon. I had to make them comfortable. Let them believe I didn't suspect a thing. So I went the other way. I started playing the role of the distracted husband. You know the type, work-focused, mildly aloof, not asking too many questions. I made it seem like I was staying late at the office more often. I started fake texting during dinner, pretending to be busy while actually watching her reflection in the kitchen glass. And wouldn't you know it, patterns began to emerge. Jenna got bolder. Her phone, which used to be locked with a fingerprint, was now on silent with notifications turned off. She started dressing up a bit more for her girl nights, taking longer to get ready. Once, I even spotted her spritzing perfume, the one she usually wore only on anniversaries. Then there were the phone calls. She'd step out onto the back porch or into the garage for air, but always with her phone in hand. I caught snippets. Laughter. Soft uh-hs. Once, I heard her say, "You're bad," in a voice that didn't belong to a woman talking to her friend. I started keeping notes. Dates, times, phrases. At first, it made me feel sick. But soon, it made me focused. I wasn't the jealous, possessive type. I was the strategic type. The kind who didn't want just to catch them. I wanted to understand how deep the betrayal went. And then came the perfect opportunity. Jenna said she was going to visit her college friend, Rachel, in Cincinnati for a weekend. Just the two of them, she claimed, spa day, brunch, catching up. I smiled, nodded, even helped her pack. "You deserve it," I told her. And I meant it, but not for the reason she thought. As soon as she left, I did what I never thought I'd do in a marriage. I searched her phone backup. She had an old iPad still synced to her iCloud account. And let me tell you, people forget what they connect to the cloud. Within minutes, I had access to her recent messages, app notifications, even voice memos. And there it was. She wasn't going to Cincinnati. She'd booked a weekend stay in a cabin up north, under Chris's name. The reservation confirmation came through Airbnb. And attached to the booking? A sweet little note. "Can't wait to have you to myself again. Last weekend wasn't enough." My mouth went dry. I stared at that screen like it was about to catch fire. Again, meaning this wasn't their first time. Meaning they'd been doing this behind my back, while smiling at me across the dinner table. That moment changed everything. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even feel rage. What I felt was clarity. See, most people make the mistake of exploding when they catch a cheater. They scream, they break stuff, they confront. And maybe they get satisfaction, but they never get control. I didn't want revenge that came and went like a punch. I wanted something colder, deeper, smarter. And from that point on, I made a decision. I wouldn't just destroy the affair. I'd destroy their trust in each other. I'd make them question the very thing they were using to betray me. Jenna came back from her spa weekend 2 days later. Hair curled, skin glowing, humming some song she hadn't sung in years. She brought back overpriced candles and a little gift bag like nothing had happened. I smiled and kissed her on the cheek. She never saw the look in my eyes. I had started laying traps. Tiny, almost invisible at first. Comments I'd let slip like, "Chris texted me last night." Sounded kind of off. Or, "Hey, did you ever notice Chris gets weird when you're around?" Just little seeds, nothing serious. But they took root. I could see it in her eyes. She'd pause, then shake it off. And with Chris, I did the same. I invited him out for a beer the next week. We talked about everything, sports, family, our dad's old boat. And then, right before we left, I said, "You know, Jenna's been acting strange lately. I think she's hiding something from me." He blinked. For a second, I thought I saw guilt. But then he forced a laugh. That's the thing about liars. They're always trying too hard to seem calm. I drove home that night feeling more in control than I had in months. I knew what I was dealing with now. I just had to be patient. Because soon enough, they'd start to turn on each other. And that's when the real fun would begin. The days that followed were oddly calm. On the surface, at least. Jenna went back to her usual routine. Work, yoga classes, fake girls' nights, smiling through dinner. Chris texted me about grabbing wings or watching the game. Like nothing had shifted. But everything had shifted. For me, anyway. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was tracking. Testing. I'd begun building what I called the archive, screenshots, messages, travel bookings, timestamps, and every fake smile I captured on hidden audio recordings from an old phone I planted under the car seat. Not because I needed proof anymore. No, I already had that. But because I needed leverage. Ammunition. Control. It was a weekday evening when the next crack in their story showed itself. Jenna said she had a late client meeting downtown. "Don't wait up," she tossed casually while adjusting her makeup in the hallway mirror. But I had already installed a GPS tracker on her car. Not out of impulse. Out of precision. That evening, while she thought she was disappearing into the night with her perfect little lie, I was sitting at home with my laptop open, watching the glowing dot that represented her car veer away from downtown and head west. Suburban. Quiet. Straight to a residential neighborhood I'd never heard of. I didn't drive after her. That's what old me would have done. I wasn't going to show up and get emotional. No, I was going to study her, learn her patterns, learn their patterns. So I opened another tab. I found the address. A small rental house listed under a holding company. I pulled up the name. Guess who was one of the co-signers on the lease? Chris. You can imagine the restraint it took not to flip the table in that moment. But I didn't. Instead, I took notes, screenshotted everything, labeled it all with dates and times, laughed quietly. The house wasn't new. The documents showed the lease had been active for nearly 3 months, which meant they'd planned this, created a shared space, a secret base where they could pretend they weren't monsters. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to confront them with a bang. I wasn't going to throw their cheating in their faces and storm out. No, I was going to make them suffer, but suffer through each other. So I leaned in. I became even more relaxed around Jenna, more generous. I left surprise flowers on the counter, offered spontaneous date nights, suggested we plan a weekend getaway. I wanted her to feel guilty. I wanted her to second-guess herself every time she looked into my eyes. And Chris? I made him feel trusted again. I invited him to help me with a few things around the house, moving furniture, fixing the back fence. Gave him beers, laughed with him. Even thanked him for being there during such a busy season. Meanwhile, I fed each of them tiny, subtle lies. To Jenna, Chris mentioned a girl he's been seeing lately. Says it's serious. To Chris, Jenna's been texting her ex from college. I saw a message pop up. The results? Immediate. Jenna got cold with Chris. Not openly, just hesitant, distant. I noticed she stopped humming when she got dressed for those nights away. Chris became agitated. He texted me less, called her more, probably demanding answers, probably sensing that her attention was shifting. But here's the beautiful thing about paranoia. Once planted, it grows fast. They stopped syncing. Missed meetings. Weirdly timed messages. The sweetness in their notes turned transactional. They began talking like strangers trying to sound normal. And I documented all of it. I saved everything. The most damning moment came in the form of a voice memo Chris accidentally left running while shoving his phone into his pocket. I guess he'd hit record by mistake during one of their little arguments in the rental house. And there it was, his voice, low and sharp. I gave up everything for this. You're pulling away. Don't think I don't notice. Then silence. Then Jenna, defensive. You knew this wouldn't be easy. Don't guilt me. Guilt her? He was starting to see it, feel it. I downloaded the audio, filed it away. Another piece of the puzzle, another sharp edge I'd use later. Because this wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was about control. And the more I smiled at them in daylight, the more they slipped in the dark. What they didn't know was, I wasn't trying to stop them. I was letting them destroy each other, one lie at a time. I don't believe in revenge out of rage. I believe in precision. And if I was going to make them destroy each other, I needed a better weapon than yelling or tears. So I created someone. His name was Ryan. Ryan Brooks. He didn't exist, of course, but he had a believable LinkedIn profile, a few AI-generated photos, a social media presence built carefully over a few late nights, and a backstory solid enough to fool anyone. Recently divorced, traveled often, new in town, just looking to connect. Then, I set the bait. Using a secondary phone and an alternate dating app, I matched Ryan with Jenna. Now, understand this. I didn't know if she would take it. A small part of me wanted her to hesitate, to pause, to prove that maybe, there was still a shred of loyalty left. But there wasn't. Within 24 hours, Jenna and Ryan were flirting. Her messages came in hot and fast. She told him she was unhappy, that her marriage felt cold. She joked about how some nights, I feel like I don't exist to him. I copied every word. I saved every screenshot. And the whole time, while she was falling into this fake fantasy of attention and validation, she had no idea it was me on the other side. I watched her shift. Start checking her phone with more excitement. Start smiling at messages she thought were from some smooth-talking stranger. Meanwhile, I began stage 2, destabilize Chris. With a prepaid burner phone and another anonymous email, I began feeding him hits. Messages like, "She's lied to both of you. You should really check her phone sometime. You're not the only one she sneaks off to see. She talked about you today. Not in a good way." At first, he ignored them. Probably thought it was spam. But paranoia doesn't need proof. It just needs repetition. Soon, he was texting Jenna more frequently, asking vague questions, getting moody. demanding little reassurances. And she? She was too distracted with Ryan to notice the shift. They were unraveling. One evening, Jenna left her phone in the kitchen while taking a shower. I glanced over and saw a new message come in from Chris. Do you still even want this? Or am I just convenient? That was my cue. I took Ryan up a notch. Suggested they meet for coffee. Jenna hesitated. Not much, but enough to make me curious. She responded, maybe someday soon. I just need to get something off my chest first. Bingo. She wanted to confess. Maybe to Ryan. Maybe to herself. But I didn't care. I only cared that she was inching closer to implosion. Meanwhile, I left little signs around the house. Out-of-place receipts. A faint scent of cologne I never wore on my jacket. A hotel room keycard tucked under the passenger seat of my car, placed just so it would slide out when she adjusted the seat. None of it meant anything. It was all planted. But she noticed, and it started to bother her. One night she asked, "Hey, have you been out more lately?" I raised an eyebrow. Not really. Just work. Why? She shook her head. No reason. I could see it in her eyes, uncertainty. Not guilt. Not yet. But the beginning of it. Chris, meanwhile, sent me a strange message. You ever feel like people around you are hiding things? I replied, all the time. I wanted him to wonder. To stew in that growing pot of doubt. Because trust, once cracked, doesn't need a hammer. It crumbles under its own weight. And I kept collecting data. Every message Jenna sent to Ryan. Every late-night call Chris made to Jenna, sounding more desperate with each voicemail. I saved it all. Because soon, I'd use it to light the match. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to threaten. All I had to do was let them talk, to each other, to themselves, to ghosts I created. The trap wasn't closing yet. But the walls were getting tighter. And they were the ones tightening them. By now, the performance was second nature. I was the perfect husband, present, supportive, never intrusive. I brought home wine on Wednesdays, cooked her favorite pasta on Sundays, asked about her day like I cared about the answers. But under the surface, I was tightening the screws. Chris had grown erratic. His messages were shorter, often delayed. Once or twice, he even asked to borrow money, which was unlike him. Jenna, on the other hand, had gone quiet in her chats with Ryan. Her tone was still flirty, but less frequent, more uncertain. So I nudged things forward. I arranged an accidental run-in. I told Jenna I had a meeting downtown and left home a little earlier than usual. But instead, I waited near the rental house, the one Chris leased. Just far enough that I could watch, but not be seen. Sure enough, her car pulled in at 11:37 a.m. She was supposed to be at brunch. I waited. 30 minutes passed. Then, I called Chris. He didn't answer. But 2 minutes later, he texted, "Can I call you later?" Busy. That was all I needed. That night, I planted the seed. Over dinner, I looked thoughtful and asked Jenna, "Has Chris seemed different to you lately?" She looked up, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," I shrugged. "He just seems distant. Weird energy. Like he's hiding something." She looked down at her plate. "Maybe he's just going through something." I smiled. "Maybe." The next day, I sent an anonymous letter to Chris. A printed page, no return address. Inside it was a photo taken from a distance, grainy, but clear enough to show Jenna walking into the house he rented. Underneath, I typed, "If she lies to him, what makes you think she tells you the truth?" No signature. No explanation. Just silence. I dropped it in a mailbox across town, wearing gloves. The same night, Jenna got a message from Ryan that said, "I think you're hiding more than you admit. I'm not into secrets." Her response came late. "It's complicated. I'm not ready to explain everything yet." Ryan left it on read. For the next few days, tension hung in the house like smoke. Jenna started double-checking her texts. Chris stopped texting me altogether. He showed up unannounced at our place one afternoon, saying he just happened to be nearby. He looked tired, fidgety. We had a beer on the porch, and I played it cool. "You good?" I asked. He nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just work stuff." "Right," I said, knowing full well he hadn't worked in months. Then, without looking at me, he muttered, "You think Jen is happy?" That was new. I blinked, then gave a casual shrug. "I guess so." "Why?" He hesitated. "She just seems distracted lately." "Yeah." I nodded slowly. "You're not the first to say that." That hung in the air between us like a blade. A few hours later, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail played loud and clear. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I swear, if I find out you're behind this, I'll end it. Chris's voice. Strained. Angry. Good. It was working. They were starting to distrust each other. Jenna began pulling away. Less affection. More time spent in other rooms. She wasn't visiting Chris as often, and when she did, she came back tense, quiet. One night I asked, "You okay?" She forced a smile. "Just tired." I nodded, but in my mind, I was already setting up the next move. The final game had to be perfect. No violence. No shouting. Just a mirror. A reflection so brutal that they'd finally see who they really were. And hate each other for it. There's a moment, just before a storm breaks, where the air gets too still. Too quiet. It's not peace, it's pressure. That's where we were. Jenna was slipping. Chris was unraveling. And me? I was almost ready. But not quite. I needed one final push to break their trust in each other completely. So I gave them exactly what they feared most. A reason to suspect betrayal inside the betrayal. It started with a text from Ryan to Jenna. "Your friend keeps asking questions about you. I'm not sure who he is, but he seemed angry." I sent it at 2:12 a.m. while she was asleep next to me. She didn't see it until morning. She stared at the screen longer than usual, then deleted it. But I knew it landed. Later that day, she called Chris. I was listening through the small audio bug I'd placed under the kitchen table. Her voice was sharp, urgent. "Did you say something to someone? Did you talk about me?" Chris sounded confused, defensive, but I could hear the panic in his voice. "I didn't say anything." "Why? What happened?" "Just don't lie to me, okay?" Beautiful. They were cracking from the inside now. But I wasn't done. A few days later, I left a note on Jenna's windshield while she was at yoga. Folded once, written in block letters. "He knows. Ask Chris who else she's talking to." No name. No signature. Just enough to haunt her. That night, she barely spoke. Ate in silence. Checked her phone obsessively. I acted like I didn't notice. The next morning, Chris showed up at our house. This time, he didn't even bother knocking. Just walked in, eyes bloodshot, fist clenched. "I need to talk to Jenna," he said flatly. I raised my eyebrows. "She's in the shower." He paced the living room like a caged animal. When she came out, towel in hand, she froze. "What are you doing here?" "I got a note," he snapped. "Someone's messing with me." "With us." She went pale. I stood between them with a coffee in hand, pretending to be concerned. Chris turned to me. "You getting anything weird lately?" I shook my head, calm as ever. "Nope. Everything's been quiet." He stared at me for a moment. I could feel his doubt. That was the moment I knew. He didn't trust her anymore. And she didn't trust him. After he left, Jenna sat at the kitchen table staring out the window. I could see her hands trembling. She wasn't sure who to be afraid of anymore, me, him, or someone else entirely. Perfect. Later that night, I checked the burner phone. Jenna had sent Ryan a message. "Everything's falling apart. I wish we'd met first." I didn't answer. Instead, I downloaded all the chats, photos, and recordings into a single folder on a flash drive. Labeled it, "The End," because the time was near. I wasn't going to show it to her yet. No, the grand finale needed a stage. One with both of them present. One where I could reveal everything without ever raising my voice. Just the truth. A truth so sharp, so undeniable, that it would leave them shattered. The match was lit. Now all I had to do was wait for the right moment to drop it. The thing about betrayal is it craves an audience. It starts in secret, but it always wants more. More drama. More risk. More attention. That's where people like Jenna and Chris go wrong. They think they can control the flames they lit. But fire doesn't stay in its corner. So I decided it was time to let it spread. I booked a cabin. Remote. Secluded. Just a few hours from the city. I told Jenna it was for our anniversary, an early celebration, just the two of us, no phones, no work, just nature and quiet. She hesitated, but agreed. Then I called Chris. "Hey," I said casually. "Big favor. I'm taking Jenna out of town this weekend for a surprise. Think you can come by the house Friday and help me move a few things while she's packing?" He paused. "Yeah, sure. What time?" 7. Now I had them both in the same timeline. I just needed them to collide. The next step was crafting the reveal. I prepared a box. Inside it, I placed the flash drive labeled "The End," along with printed screenshots of Jenna's messages to Ryan, photos from their cabin rendezvous, the GPS logs, the transcripts from voice recordings, even the note I had planted weeks earlier. Then I wrote a simple message on top. "You deserve each other." The plan was cruel, yes, but it was honest. Friday came. Chris arrived on time. I greeted him, played it cool, offered a beer. Jenna was upstairs, pretending to pack. She didn't know he was there yet. While Chris waited in the kitchen, I called up to Jenna. "Hey babe, can you grab that red sweater? The one you like for photos." She yelled back, "It's in the dryer. I'll get it." I made sure Chris could hear that. Then, as Jenna came downstairs with the sweater in hand, she saw him. She stopped, frozen. He looked up, their eyes locked. And in that moment, everything between them twisted into something sour and sharp. "Chris," she whispered. He stood up slowly. "You didn't tell me you were going anywhere this weekend." She blinked. I thought you were." And that's when I stepped in. Calm. Steady. I invited him. Thought he could help with the bags. No one spoke. The air was electric. I handed Chris the box. "This is for both of you," I said. "I figured you'd want to open it together." Jenna looked like she might faint. Chris didn't move. I walked out the front door and left them alone in the kitchen. Let the storm begin. Outside, I sat on the porch swing and waited. I didn't need to hear the shouting. Didn't need to watch the tears. I'd already seen the truth. Now it was their turn. They stayed in there for over an hour. I could hear faint voices, rising and falling. A crash. Then silence. Eventually, Jenna came out. Pale. Shaking. She didn't say a word. She got into her car and drove off. Chris left soon after, the box still in his hands, face blank, as if everything in his head had been turned upside down. That night, I sat alone on the porch and breathed in the quiet. For the first time in months, the air didn't feel heavy. They had finally destroyed each other. And I hadn't raised a hand. The days after the reveal were eerily quiet. Jenna didn't come home that night, or the next. I didn't call her. Didn't text. Just let the silence stretch, like a wound healing over too fast. Chris didn't reach out either. It was like they'd both vanished, sucked into the vacuum left behind when the lies burned out. But the aftermath came in waves. On Monday, Jenna showed up at the house to collect her things. She didn't knock. She used her key, walked in slowly, like a thief in her own home. I was sitting at the kitchen table, reading. We didn't speak. She moved like a ghost through the house, her arms full of clothes, toiletries, little pieces of the life we'd built together. At one point, she stopped in the hallway and looked at me. "I'm sorry," she said. I didn't respond. Because she wasn't sorry. She was caught. She left without another word. I waited 10 minutes, then stood, walked into the bedroom, and removed her name from the Wi-Fi network. Cold? Maybe, but necessary. Chris, on the other hand, imploded a little more publicly. I heard from a mutual friend that he'd been fired from a small freelance job after missing too many deadlines. Rumors swirled. He'd been seen drinking alone, pacing outside his apartment building at night, snapping at strangers. He was unraveling. And part of me pitied him, not because of what he did, but because I knew he'd never recover. Not fully. He wasn't built for shame. Jenna would bounce back eventually, liars like her always do. But Chris? He was already halfway broken before this. Now he was just dust. As for me, I didn't celebrate. There were no parties. No drinks in the air. Just stillness. A quiet house. A clean inbox. An empty side of the bed. But also peace. No more watching my back. No more pretending not to know. No more lies wrapped in smiles over dinner. I started walking every morning. Just around the block at first. Then the park. Eventually, I picked up running again, something I hadn't done in years. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. Stopped obsessing over location pings. Stopped chasing ghosts. Instead, I started reading, writing, planning. Not revenge. Rebuilding. One afternoon, I received an email from Jenna. The subject line was blank. The message said, "I know I messed up. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I never stopped loving you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I clicked delete. No response. No drama. Just silence. And that was enough. I had played the long game. Not to win her back. Not to make them suffer endlessly. Just to show them what they were. To make them face it. And now? Now, I was finally free. It happened on a Tuesday. I didn't plan it. I didn't script it. But somehow, all the pieces moved into place, like the final click of a loaded chamber. Jenna showed up at my work. Unannounced. Uninvited. Dressed in the same coat she wore on the day we first met, as if some part of her thought nostalgia might soften the damage. I walked out to the parking lot, unsure what she wanted. She looked nervous, fragile. I need to talk, she said. I nodded, wordless. We got in my car, drove to a quiet overlook outside the city. I parked and waited. She fidgeted with her hands, eyes glancing everywhere but at me. I know I don't have the right, she began, but I wanted to say it anyway. I said nothing. I was stupid. I messed up, and I get why you did what you did. That caught my attention. You mean what I did? I asked. She looked at me now. The emails, the messages, the notes. I know it was you. I exhaled slowly. You figured it out, I said. Eventually. She shook her head. At first, I thought it was someone else trying to ruin us. But then I realized no one else knew enough to make it all fit. Only you. I smiled. Just a little. And yet you never stopped, I said. Even when you suspected. I was in too deep, she whispered. And Chris. She flinched at his name. He's gone, she said. Blocked me. I don't know where he is. I nodded. Good. There was a long silence. Then she looked at me with a kind of desperation I hadn't seen in her before. Do you hate me? She asked. I thought about it. No, I said. I don't hate you. That would take too much energy. Then what? I see you now. That's all. She swallowed. And is there any chance we could ever? No. The word hit the air like a bullet. She nodded. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't cry. Not fully. Instead, she pulled out a small envelope from her purse. What's that? I asked. Letters, she said. Ones I wrote. After. You don't have to read them. I didn't reach for them. She placed the envelope on the dashboard and opened the car door. I'll go, she said. Jenna, I said quietly. She paused. I hope you find what you're looking for, but not at someone else's expense next time. She stepped out, closed the door. I watched her walk away, small, distant, no longer my wife, not even my enemy, just someone I used to know. I picked up the envelope, didn't open it, drove straight home and tossed it in the trash. And that was it. The end of the story, not with a bang, but with a soft click of a door closing. No more secrets. No more questions. Only clarity. It's funny what peace feels like after chaos. It's not a parade. Not a moment of triumph. It's just stillness. A quiet that doesn't ask questions. A silence that doesn't need filling. That's where I live now. The house is different these days. Lighter. Cleaner. Not just physically, but emotionally. I repainted the living room. Got rid of the couch we used to sit on. Replaced old photos with landscapes and art I liked. I even got a dog. His name's Baxter. He's terrible at fetch, but he follows me everywhere, like he knows I've been through something. I work better now. Sleep better. I started writing again, short essays, bits of fiction. Nothing public. Just for me. To sort through the noise that used to live in my chest. Sometimes I think back to it all. Not with bitterness. More like rewatching a movie you've already seen. You know the twists. You know how it ends. And it doesn't hurt anymore. It just was. Jenna sent another email a few weeks ago. I didn't open it. I don't need closure. I have it already. The kind you build for yourself, not the kind someone hands you with apologies and tears. Chris? Haven't heard a word. Don't want to. Some ghosts don't need to be resurrected. I've learned a few things through all this. 1. Trust isn't given. It's earned every single day. 2. You can love someone and still leave them behind. Sometimes, that's the most loving thing you can do for yourself. And 3. Peace isn't the absence of betrayal. It's what you choose to build after the fire. So here I am. No longer the man she betrayed. No longer the brother he lied to. Just a man who walked through the fire and didn't let it burn him into someone bitter. I didn't just survive. I rebuilt. And in doing so, I found something I never had with either of them. Freedom. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did I do the right thing?